Okay, now we're going to have a conversation about race in America and police brutality and inequality. For some of you that don't get it, black people in this country have a long history of being discriminated against and being treated differently than anybody else. I'm going to start with my own personal background. I was raised in a historic neighborhood in East Cleveland, Ohio. Historic because it is the former summer home of John D. Rockefeller. Yes, I lived in John D. Rockefeller's neighborhood. Secondly, went to private schools. Villa Angela St. Joseph High School, Cleveland, Ohio. Thirdly, went on to get my bachelor's degree in business. But you know what? None of that matters because of my complexion. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. If you have my complexion in this country, you're treated the same. So, as you can see, I have changed wardrobe so that maybe you could understand just how other people feel. So, let me give a few personal stories that I have experienced. This is going to take a minute, so get comfortable. The first experience that I had with the cops that I'm going to discuss, mind you, let me back up a little bit. I have never been a victim of police brutality. However, I have had inequality from the police. So, my first story is from a job that I had at Circuit City, back when that was still a company. We had a theft at the store. Police were called, and they were in the back interviewing my manager, getting details and all that about the theft. Now, my shift is over, and been on my feet for 8 hours. Like to get off, go home, relax, and all that. I go into the back room. Manager sitting there talking to the police. I would just like to slide past, just walk in front of the officer around to the back where my coat is hanging so I can get my coat and go home. He refuses to let me pass simply to go get my coat so I can get off work. Been on my feet for 8 hours today. I'd like to get off work and go home. I'm sure anybody else would feel the same. However, white officer decides to be a bully and not let me pass. Just simply walk right past him, not even touch him, just walk right past him, go get my coat, leave, I'm off work now. Would not let me do that. Now, next story. I was on my way out to visit my best friend. He lives in a suburb of Cleveland called Strongsville, Ohio. This suburb is a predominantly affluent Caucasian neighborhood. On my way out to go visit him, I am about a half mile from his house, I would say. I'm going to make a left turn. I am sitting in the left turn lane. Now, as I am in the left turn lane, I forgot to turn on my blinker. Now, as the light turns green, I do turn on my blinker before I actually turn left. Now, the police car pulls up behind me, pulls me over, and asks why I didn't have my blinker on. I did have my blinker on. I turned my blinker on before I made the left turn. Granted, the blinker was not on the entire time I was sitting in the left turn lane, but it was on before I turned left. And she acknowledged that. Now I'm going out to visit my best friend, with a similar complexion to me, actually darker than I am, who lives in this white, affluent neighborhood. Why? Because his father is a doctor. Why did she pull me over? Because I didn't turn on my blinker? No, that wasn't it. You pulled me over because I was a black man in this white, affluent neighborhood. Third story, and this is the kicker, is a story about my first year of college. I attended the University of Cincinnati at first, and while there, my very first night, having been drinking away at school, first time ever drunk, went to a party with a friend of mine. And as I walked home, stumbled home, I encountered a group of approximately 10 to 15 white men, probably frat boys. And they started making comments towards me and my friend, and we just kept walking. Now my friend, I believe, turned around, didn't say anything, just gave him the finger. And that was enough for them to charge and assault us. That night I was knocked unconscious with a concussion. I have a few chipped teeth still to this day, and bruises and scars that have never gone away. This was 14 years ago. Now, when I woke up from my concussion, the police were standing over me and letting me know what had happened and all that. They gave me an ultimatum. They said, if I make a report on what happened, they would have to arrest me for underage drinking. Or they could just let it go and I could go back to my dorm room. Now, why didn't they want to make a report? Because they'd have had to gone after white men who attacked a black man. No big deal, Cincinnati. This happens around here. Nonetheless, I never had any animosity towards white people because of that. Because at the end of that, it was a white couple, male and a female, that saw what happened, told me what happened, as they were also kicking me while I'm unconscious, literally kicking me while I was down. It was the white couple that helped me back to my dorm room. So I have no animosity towards white people. But the police should have made the report, should have followed up, should have done an investigation on who assaulted me. Now, for most of you, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir at this point. I'm sure you've had similar experiences with the police, similar experiences in your life. But for those of you who don't get it, try to understand how black people feel in this country, especially when they were confronted by the police. Now, I make this video in honor of Trayvon Martin of Sanford, Florida. This is why I have the hoodie on. Eric Gardner of New York, New York. Michael Brown of Ferguson, Missouri. And Tamir Rice from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, in terms of Trayvon Martin, just because you see a black person walking through a predominantly white, affluent neighborhood does not mean that he is a threat. And it also does not mean that he needs to be stopped and questioned. He was wearing a hoodie because it was raining. And he was black and he lived there. He's one of your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. In terms of Eric Gardner, he did not assault the police. He was actually asking the police not to touch him. He just didn't want to be arrested for something that he felt he hadn't done. Something that he felt he was not guilty of. But the police choked him to death. and and he repeatedly told them, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," and the man died. In that case, not even gonna go to trial. In terms of Michael Brown, need I say more? Again, not even going to go to trial. In terms of Tamir Rice, he was a 12-year-old boy with a toy gun, probably playing cops and robbers, or cowboys and Indians, or whatever the case may be. A 12-year-old boy shot dead in less than 2 seconds. Now, I don't mean that in hyperbole. I mean literally within 2 seconds of the police pulling up, the boy was shot. Dead. The jury is still out on that one. We're waiting to see how that one will turn out. Now let me rewind back to Trayvon Martin. Acquitted. So, for those of you who do not understand, there is a long, dark, terrible history of this happening in this country. Those are just simply 4 examples of the many throughout the course of American history. Please, just because you see somebody that is big or black or both does not mean that they are a threat to you. Thank you.